Oh, I know that sound. It's time for the Beer News Report. Cheers and welcome to the Beer News Report. Guess what? I've been proven wrong. You know, I said in my last show that I couldn't find a case where the U.S. government used tanks against protesters. Well, my brother-in-law Paul Gladding pointed out to me that President Hoover did have tanks used to get rid of the bonus army. I know. What's the bonus army? In 1924, Congress passed the World War Adjusted Compensation Act and gave World War I vets certificates which they could redeem in 1948 as a bonus for their efforts in the war. But then the Great Depression hit in 1929, so by 1932, these vets needed the money and started protesting in Washington, D.C. to let them redeem their certificates early. And that's why they're called the Bonus Army. Now, their real name is the Bonus Expeditionary Force because in World War I they were called the American Expeditionary Force. But then they just kind of shortened it down to the Bonus Army. And these guys were led by a sergeant by the name of Walter W. Waters. So on January 28th, the U.S. Attorney General William D. Mitchell ordered the veterans removed from all government property. Washington police met with resistance. They shot at the protesters, and 2 veterans were wounded and later died. Then President Herbert Hoover asked Army Chief of Staff General Douglas MacArthur, to remove these people from the parks, but not until he ordered it. So General MacArthur, he got tired of waiting for the president and said, you know what? He ordered one of his majors to go in and remove the protesters. Who was that major? Well, it was Major George Patton. Later, you know him as General Patton. So he commanded infantry and some cavalry that were supported by 6 M1917 light tanks. And the Bonus Army marchers and their wives and children, they were driven out and their shelters and belongings burned. So there you have it. Thanks, Paul, for correcting me, and cheers. Okay, for today's show, I was going to talk about life extension, living to the year 200 or older. Yeah, there's a lot of people doing it, scientists, and they're working on this. But halfway through the script, President Trump went on TV and said that there are more white people being killed than black people. Now, I live in California, and not only that, I live in the Bay Area, which is one of the most liberal areas in the world. I started getting texts and emails from friends saying, did you hear what Trump said? No way, more whites are being killed than blacks. But then I also have conservative and Republican friends who said, President Trump knows exactly what he's talking about. There are more white people being killed than blacks. So obviously I had to jump on this topic and find out who's right. So not only did I only have a couple of days to do my research, but only one day to write up this script. So I'm going to try to be as open as possible so you can check out my sources and see if you believe in what I found. Okay? You ready to do this? Yeah, we better have a drink first. Cheers. Now, I've researched data from 3 websites to get a consensus. The websites are the Washington Post, Statista.com, and the Root.com. All of these websites are getting their data from one or more of these other sites. The Bureau of Justice Statistics, the U.S. Police Shootings Database, the MappingPoliceViolence.org, FatalEncounters.org, KilledByPolice.net. Now, the Washington Post is probably the most well-known of the 3, and they're actually doing a special report on fatal police shootings, so that works well for us. Statista.com is a website dedicated to statistics, and the Root.com is an African-American-based online magazine. Now, as it turns out, it's not really that easy to get information from police. There's no standardized system of reporting killings or other mishaps, so it's hard to get a consensus. But the Washington Post reports that 1,010 people were killed, whereas the Root.com reports that 1,041 were killed. So who's got it right? I don't have enough information to answer that, so by default, I got to go with a lower number because people are innocent until proven guilty, right? So we're going to go with the lower number, the 1,010 killings. Now, is that good or bad compared to the other years? Well, let's take a look. In 2018, there were 998 fatal police shootings. And in 2017, there were 986. 2016, 962, and then in 2015, there were 994. So there's definitely a trend upwards. So the police are killing more people. But wait a minute. The population of the U.S. is also growing every year. So if the population grows, there's more people committing crimes and thus more killings, right? That's an excellent point. And the U.S. population grows at around 0.5% a year. So 0.5% of 998, the number of killings in 2018, would be 1,003. So obviously, 1,010 killings is, higher than 1,003. But we're talking about killings here. So we should always want that number to go down, not up, even if the population is increasing. I mean, sure, the difference of 7 people is no big deal, unless your brother or your mother or some family member of yours is the one that gets killed in those extra 7. Then it's a huge deal. All right, let's get back to the main point. Of those 1,010 killings, did more white people die than black? Well, according to this chart, yes. As you can see, 44.9% of the killings were white people, and 31.8% were black. And I can hear my friends now saying, "Yo, Cornflake, what cracker website you get that tired chart from?" Yeah, you guessed it. I got Asian friends. Cheers. Anyway, the chart came from theroot.com, an Afro-American magazine. They're not going to build up the white numbers. And also, this chart is based on the 1,041 killings, not the 1,010. So based on this chart and others that I reviewed, but I like this chart the best, it is safe to say that President Trump was correct. There are more white people being killed by police than blacks or any other race. I know, it makes me want to drink too. Cheers. Now, before you go all crazy and smash your cell phone or iPad or laptop or anything else you're using to watch this, I hope you didn't smash it already, because if you did, you're not going to hear the second part of this show where I explain that the Black Lives Matter movement also has a case. What? How can that be? Yes, sure, the numbers show that more white people get killed than any other race by police in America. But that's looking at it from a pure number standpoint. What if we look at it from a per capita standpoint? Per capita means that we're going to look at the numbers based on the percentages that the race make up in America. Think about it. If you had a bag filled with 1,000 different fruit, and let's say 600 were apples and 200 were bananas and another 150 were grapes and so on and so on, if you reached in, most likely you're going to pull out an apple because there's so many of them. Well, of course you could feel around, and apple feels way different from a banana or a grape, and probably the grapes at the bottom are getting smushed. Okay, let's change that. Let's say you had 1,000 balls in a bag or a box or something, and you're reaching in, and these rubber balls are all the same size, but they're different colors. And again, you have 600 white balls, 200 brown balls, 150 black balls, 60 yellow balls, and about 13 red balls. Now, if you reached in and grabbed one without looking, it's most likely going to be a white ball, just because there's so many of them. Right? Have I confused you? Do you have any idea what I'm talking about? All right, let me explain this. Cheers. To understand the per capita numbers, we're going to have to look at the population of the U.S. and see the breakdown of each race. So here's a chart from the U.S. Census Bureau showing the different races in the U.S. and what percentage each race makes up. As you can see, the white race makes up 60% of the U.S. and the black race makes up 13%. What does that mean if the white race is having 60% of the population but only 45% of the killings, whereas the black race is making up 13% of the population but 32% of the killings? Well, this proves what the Black Lives Matter movement has been saying all along, that more blacks are being killed than any other race on a per capita basis. But how can that be? How can President Trump be right and the Black Lives Matter movement also be right? Well, let's have a drink and figure this out. Cheers. This is what's called statistics. And these numbers, the charts, the graphs, they can all be manipulated to serve your cause, whatever it is. You need more proof? Go to YouTube and type in "statistics can prove anything." You will get a ton from any number of people showing you the number of ways that you can use statistics to prove your point or disprove someone else's point. The point I'm trying to make here is that just because someone comes up to you and shows, tells you their cause and proves it with statistics, that doesn't mean you should believe them. You're going to have to go out and do your own research. I know, that sounds a lot like homework, and I thought I was done with homework when I got my GED, right? I'm tired of learning. Cheers. By the way, if you do go to YouTube and do that search that I mentioned, you'll have to scroll down a bit, but about the fifth or sixth one down is something called the Simpsons Paradox. No, not that guy.
Oh, people can come up with statistics to prove anything.
Simpsons Paradox is an effect that occurs when a marginal association between two categorical variables is quantitatively different from the partial association between the same two variables after controlling for one or more of the other variables. What are you talking about? All right. What it basically means is that you have graphed or mapped out two sets of variables proving something happens in one direction. But what you're going to do is by correlating these two, you're going to prove the opposite of what the graph actually tells you. So it's a paradox. By using two sets of variables, you can prove the opposite. And all I'm trying to do is show you that you can use statistics in any way you want to get any point across that you want. All right? Cheers to statistics. Well, you can see I'm at the end of my beer. So that means we're at the end of the show. I hope you enjoyed it, and please click the like button if you did. Also, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at this email address or commenting on my video. If you want to be notified of upcoming shows, please click the subscribe button, and YouTube will notify you. But until then, keep your beer cold and your interests hot. Cheers.